to the Pulse Collective podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the PCP, otherwise known as the Pulse Collective podcast. I'm your host, Shahrukh Ansari. If this is your first time listening or hearing us audibly, the PCP is the podcast where we bring business executives and leaders from all over the business space, whatever industry that they're in, and we essentially exchange ideas and top ideas and things that we're seeing in the industry right now. We talk about the future of the industry and any opportunities that are having and share some mentorship for younger entrepreneurs that may be out there watching this. If this is your first time watching, we are Pulse Marketing Collective. We're a company that actually partners with organizations to help scale their growth strategy, whether it comes from lead generation all the way down to actually helping your sales teams and enabling them to be successful. If you've tried a lot of things in the market and it hasn't worked out for you, drop us a message down below and one of our team members will reach out to see if this is a potential for potentially partnering with us. Now, with all that out of the way, I'm very excited today because I'm actually going to be featuring Juan Araujo, who is the Senior VP of Managed Services over at Integrum. Integrum is a newer organization compared to some of the ones that we've spoken to recently. So I'm actually very excited to hear firsthand from Juan about his role, his day-to-day, and what the organization does. So Juan, super excited to have you on. Thanks for being here today.
No, thank you. Super excited to share a little bit of my story with your audience and with you.
Awesome. No, I'm really looking forward to it. I know we had a quick conversation beforehand where we bounced some ideas off of each other. So let's just kick right into it, Juan. Just let the audience know a little bit about yourself and what Integrum does and what your role today is as well.
Yeah. So again, my name's Juan. I'm based here in Charlotte, technically in Pineville, which is a little town like within Charlotte. I'm Colombian. Like I grew up in Bogotá, but I've been living here for 16 years, more or less. Integrum is primarily a Workday, like services provider, consulting services provider, from staff augmentation to AMS to deployment, like anything that touches Workday and other technologies, but I primarily just work with Workday. We've been working in the space for, I think, 7 years. And recently, my previous organization and Integrum merged. The organization that I founded was called Paladino, and in May we merged. But we've been working together for about 4 years, right? So it is just integrating vertically. And that's about it.
So Paladino was your previous organization. Like what was the difference between the two organizations? Did they accomplish similar things or were they entirely different?
I think that was the beauty of the merger, because I think that we tackled different points on the, on the value chain. So basically Paladino was strictly a consulting organization. Like we were just consultants. And for us, the how to get business was a little bit secondary. It's like, okay, we have to build the consultants, we have to train them, we have to make sure that our product is really good, and then business will come. I think that at Integrum, it was a little bit different because they started with how do we, get business, and then we interview the best possible consultants. So the consultants were already made, and then we make that match. So that's how I started working with them. Is we were the consultants that they were interviewing, and we had a lot of repeated success. And started kind of creating our own managed services practice in-house. And the merger, what happened was it's a perfect opportunity because they knew a lot of the industry, a lot of the inside knowledge, great relationship with Workday, and we already had a practice that was focused on the quality of the consultant and the retraining and uptraining of all of that. So it was kind of like a match made in heaven.
That's awesome. For our younger audience or people who may not be familiar with Workday to the extent that we are, but let's kind of just take it back. What exactly is it? And also what is your, I guess more specifically, what's exactly the role that you play?
Perfect. Yeah. So Workday today is an ERP, like an enterprise resource planner. One of these softwares, back when I started, it was just an HRIS, which means human resources information system. But that still is a lot of acronyms that probably a lot of people don't care about. So let's explain it in a little bit of a simpler way. So if you are working and you log into a system to check your paycheck, how much did I get paid, which is how most people interact with HRIS. That system that you're logging into to check how much you got paid and how much, what was withheld for taxes and all of that, that is your HRIS, where you ask for vacation, or where you enter, like your taxing information and all of that, where you apply for a new job. Technically, that's an applicant, like management system or an ATS, but Workday does it all. So from the moment that we recruit to the moment that we retire, and then everything financials related, which is not my sweet spot. Like I live on the HR side, but there's a lot of the financial side, like accounts payable, accounts receivable, like all of that is part of what we do in the Workday space.
Nice. Yeah. For me personally, like I can say I've used Workday extensively over the years. Like it's kind of, you could say if you worked in any enterprise organization, it's kind of like as the Salesforce for sales teams, it's universally accepted as kind of like your standard system on the back end. So definitely been really very familiar with that. Not newer, but something that I wasn't as familiar with is, if I actually wanted to talk to you about, was our previous company adopted SAP SuccessFactors, which a lot of organizations I'm seeing are adopting that as well. Just for people who are obviously newer to this space, like what are the differences between what each of them offer? Are they high level the same thing, or do they accomplish two different things?
I love this question, right? Because if we're talking like strictly Workday, and you were like at an HR tech or a Workday Rising, they would say we're absolutely different, but they're the same, right? Like they try to accomplish the exact same goal. Workday, Oracle Cloud, which a lot of people, are familiar with, like PeopleSoft, or a lot of older people, right? Like the 90s, it was PeopleSoft era. And then Workday disrupted the business around 2007, 2008. And the value proposition then was completely different, because it was cloud-based software as a service. No one ever saw that. And that's where I started. Like nowadays, those things are, like if you are not software as a service and in the cloud, you don't exist. Like, can you imagine someone like pitching to you, hey, I'm going to house my software in your building, and you're going to need like a full room of machines to like house that? They would say you're bananas, right? Like you're crazy. But for your younger audience, that's how it worked when I was young. Like you went into a building and there was like this floor dedicated to computers, right? Like the cold room. And it was like something out of like Stranger Things. Like it's really like retro. And nowadays, like you're like that could not happen, right? So
Yeah.
the Workday value proposition was completely different. There were others, right? So basically, and I think this is still true, something that they call the power of one, which is everything is in the same line of code in Workday. So your payroll, your talent, your benefits, like everything is in that same line of code, which makes it very cool for us maintaining it, and also for the end user. Like you don't have to leave the system to go to another platform, or whatever it is, like what we call bolt-ons. And that's what happens a lot with SAP and Oracle, right? Because they've been buying different technologies. SuccessFactors was a talent and performance system, and SAP bought it. And they started to kind of like use that brand to build something comparable to Workday, but it's still not the same one line of code, which is still a little bit different. And then another huge difference that Workday like kind of like introduced was every client is on the same Workday. Like they are going to force you to be in the latest version. That doesn't mean that all Workdays are the same, because people tend to confuse that. There's a lot of configuration, and they hate the word customization, just configuration that you can do to make it your own. And since I started, 13 years ago, it has changed considerably. Like back then, we could know everything in Workday. Like you would have one consultant that would do HCM and recruiting and payroll. Well, recruiting was not there yet. Payroll was kind of new, but HCM and benefits and payroll, and you were the consultant. Today, like there's so much, it's so deep that it is absolutely impossible. Like you need to specialize. So there are differences. I don't want to tell you which one's better, which one's worse. Like I've dedicated my career to Workday, but I know a lot of people that are incredibly successful with SuccessFactors, SAP, and Oracle, and others like smaller like Bamboo HR. A lot of people have been very successful with that, with Paylocity and so on and so forth. So like differences, and there's definitely a product for everyone out there.
Yeah, I think one thing that you really hit the nail on the head was when you talked about the changing purchasing habits too. So a lot of companies now, I'm coming from a sales background, so I've sold enterprise security software to large banks and whatever they may be. And when I first started in the space, I also noticed that people preferred to actually have those on-premise servers deployed within their buildings, and they'll have like a separate area where their developers will go and essentially manage it on a day-to-day basis. But the shift has actually come, I want to even say over the last 10 years or so, where really everything is cloud based. And we used to call something the hybrid cloud back when I used to be at IBM, where half of your workflows were still kind of on premise, but then half of them were still they were kind of migrating to cloud because people were fearful that had like all these on premise workflows for like decades. They didn't want to just immediately migrate. So there was like this happy medium that we would always talk about where, you can put some of these things here, keep some of this stuff there. Just I've spoken to people where security was a big question mark when you're migrating flows to the cloud. So it's been really interesting to see like kind of how everything is changing. And we're going to talk about buying habits and purchasing habits and how the market has evolved as well. But before we get into that, I kind of want to step back and really have the audience learn a little bit about Juan before he entered this space. I know you went to school for something completely different. And then obviously, over time, I want to really learn about what your steps were to get to the point that you were at.
Yeah, sure. So you're absolutely right. I went to school with the idea that I wanted to work in marketing and advertising. Like, I think that, well, when I went to school, there was no Mad Men yet, but, probably that if I had seen it, I would be like, I want to be like John Draper, right? Like, I want to work in Madison Avenue and be an advertiser. And that would have been like my dream. And right out of school, what happened was, we hit the Great Recession. It was 2008, 2009. No one was really hiring for what you wanted. There were some jobs out there. So I started working, like in marketing, selling air space in places. And I did not like it. I was like at a constant struggle within of I feel like I'm selling something that does not do any good. And I'm inflating it, and then people, yeah, are buying it, and I'm having some success, but I don't feel okay. Like every time that I fall asleep, I feel like I'm not being a nice human being. And then like I started applying to whatever job came, like anything. I just needed to pay the bills. And I took a job at something called Hewitt and Associates or Hewitt Associates, which I had no clue what it was. Like people in the space now know, right? But I had no clue what it was. And he was this customer service rep for HR. And I was like, what is that? I didn't know it existed. But then I understood that there were companies that basically like teach you how a company's like HR works. And you talk to people and tell them, hey, these are your benefits, or this is like the way your talent and performance cycle works, or this is why you got promoted and this is your rating. So I started educating myself on how HR worked, and I loved it. I loved helping people. And then I had a great manager. And Jackie, if you listen to this, thank you so much. Because I haven't spoken to her since, but she told me, Juan, Workday is the future. Jump on that bandwagon. And this was the year 2011, 2012. And I didn't know what Workday was, but I got to the first project I could to get involved with Workday, which was basically training people or creating the training materials for people to self-navigate. Like, where do you go to see your inbox? Where do you go to request time off and all those little things that now we call it sort of change management. Back then we didn't have a name for it. got, one of those projects. And then I continued that career. I was first kind of funny enough, kind of like what I do today, like managed services, which what back then we called BPO. So I processed transactions for a couple of clients, HCM and payroll. I got a certification on the American Payroll Association thing and learned about payroll. And then I wanted to implement Workday because two things: money was better. And two, I complain a lot about how people configured certain things. It's like, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And I wanted to learn that piece. So then I jumped ship and I went to Accenture and got certified in Workday and started deploying. And then I went to PwC and kept on doing the same thing and just growing. And at a certain point, I had another one of those moments where I wanted to do things differently, thought that we were not preparing consultants the way that I would, just based on my experience and how I was having success, and pitched it to my partners. My partners didn't buy. So I decided, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go do it myself because I was very responsible. And my wife was awesome. And she was behind me and said, you do you, and became independent, created our own training material and started hiring people in Latin America and training them, how to do Workday my way. And that took off. We've had successful clients that are very happy with our model and all of that.
So these when you spend some time at the Big Four, because I think what's really interesting is when I used to actually know a couple people at the Big Four, they would always mention that for consultancy initiatives, they would be paying ridiculous hourly rates just to get access to some of these consultants, like $300-$400 an hour. And that would be just junior consultants. To actually get more senior level consultants, you're paying even a ridiculous amount more than that. And there isn't really a cap. There's no top end to how much it is. And a lot of them also lacked functional HR understanding, or they can lack functional specialty understanding if you're looking for a specific topic. How is your approach different from that, both from a pricing model and also just from an actual service model as well?
Yeah. So basically what you said is exactly what I rebelled against. Is we were hiring people out of college, regardless of the major, put them through 2 weeks of Workday certification, putting them in front of a client saying, this is your compensation lead. And that person has never had the depth of experience that you need to really go toe to toe on a functional conversation about how to create your job catalog, right? How are you going to pay your juniors, your entry level people, your individual contributors, your managers, your senior managers, and so on and so forth? That is an art and a science in itself that people spend years learning how to do it. And then just because you know how to create a condition rule in Workday and put it in a certain BP doesn't give you the knowledge that you need to have that conversation and then configure something that is going to be worthwhile. Because a lot of it is not technical, is not what I call pushing buttons. A lot of it is building a structure that actually is going to allow you to do those things in HR that we know and love and preach, right? Recruit the right people and then grow the right people and then have all of those competencies that are going to result in better competitive advantages versus the competition, or allow you to grow in the market. Because in the end, regardless of how much AI you believe in, it's a people world. American Airlines is not a bunch of airplanes, right? It's a lot of people that, fly airplanes, that attend airplanes, that all of those little things. And you have to write the right people. So anyway, I digress a little bit, but back to our model is we do teach people why and how those things that you're going to implement in Workday are going to affect processes and people and procedure, and also teach them one of the best little lessons that we have is, what is an HRIS? The question that you asked me, what is it for? Why do we have a system to track all of those little things? Because people tend to take that for granted, and they don't understand the why and the reason and the purpose of why we're doing these things. So that is, I think, the biggest item. And then we don't put them in front of the client as a senior consultant or a lead immediately, right? We give them a little bit of a transition until they are able to have value adding conversations. That's it.
So you actually build it up prior to just throwing them in front of a consultant and charging them $400 or $500 an hour. They at least they have an idea of like what the project is, like what exactly is happening. You kind of educate them and upskill them prior to that. So they're already
You
kind
got
of
it.
ready to go. Okay.
You got it. And I back them with architects, right? Like myself. And I'm there at every point of the project or whatever it is, or someone like me. Because as I told you before, I don't do it all. There's some people that are way better than me at Workday benefits, right? And they've seen it all. They understand ACA, or they understand, different things from a functional perspective, and then translate that into Workday. I think that is a huge difference.
I want to transition the conversation now. I think you actually transitioned it perfectly because you talked about the importance of human connection and actually having that human engagement. There's this buzzword that's going around right now. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called AI. And a lot of people are just fearful of it, but also at the same time excited about what it could enable within the business. Somebody coming from a sales background, for example, it has completely changed the game when it comes to actually sales, because where before I would have to sit down and actually research people on LinkedIn, research people on wherever it was that I was finding them, building a list, finding out their contact information, like reaching out to them. People are picking up the phones and cold calling them. Now everything is done automatically, where now you just basically need to attend a sales meeting and you're the person-to-person connection, but all the admin work has been taken care of. That used to be dreadful for a lot of people. Afterwards, like when you get off of a sales call, my biggest annoyance in my job used to be that I would have to go into Salesforce or one of our CRM systems and plug in all the notes manually about like what we spoke about. And the younger generation, or just the Gen Z in me, was just telling myself like there has to be an easier way than me just manually doing this all the time. And once AI rolled around and it started taking notes from meetings, it started manually putting these things into logs. So now your directors, your VPs, everybody could see things. You didn't have to sit there for 30, 45 minutes after a call, just manually doing things that should be done. HR is very interesting as well, because with recruitment and HR, if you've gone on Instagram, I'm seeing ads now where people are applying to 1,000, 10,000 jobs a day now using AI. And they help them with resumes. They help them apply to mass jobs based upon like certain criteria that they like. But when it comes to recruitment, also from an employer standpoint, they're also starting to leverage AI to also like zone out resumes and find out specific keywords they may be looking for out of a resume. I'm curious about, you of course have a lot more knowledge about the HR space than I do. How do you see AI as an opportunity, or how do you see it changing the way that HR was, and also how it's going to change in the next 5 to 10 years?
What is AI again? Like I've
It's
never
this
heard about that. No, I think that you're absolutely right. Like we hear it 500 times a day. We were just last Thursday at an event that is called a regional user group for the people at Cincinnati that we had the privilege of sponsoring. And of course they throw it out. They're like, hey, what is AI going to do? Workday has its own platform for AI that's called Illuminate, and they're betting heavily on like agents and agent like driven AI for exactly what you were saying, like automating tasks that don't add as much value. And we've been after that since I could remember, right? Like every day I have conversations with leadership on how do we automate these tasks that no one wants to do and they add zero value. And I think that that's where I am just an optimist. And I see it as, I think that is going to be a catalyst for better work. I see a lot of talent in the HR technology space that still spends a lot of time on manual little processes that take so much time that add very little value, and being able to automate those. And I'll give you examples, right? Like so many approvals of things that don't really matter. And I'm the first one as an architect that try for organizations to like just slash those, like a promotion, right? Like, and typically you see the 4I principles. So I put it in and then my manager has to approve it. But then organizations feel very fearful, and then they have, oh, the compensation committee has to approve that. And then the person that does this has to approve that. And then there's approvals and approvals and approvals, and a promotion that should take 24 hours takes 3 months in getting, like approved. And in three months or 2 weeks or whatever it is, just think about it. That person that was going to be promoted in today's day and age could have gotten 100 offers, and maybe you lost your guy or you lost your girl, and like it snowballs from there. So just being a lot more strategic about where to spend your time is going to be like glorious, and I'm banking on that. Now, where I see it also, all of these automations, they rely on something that we were talking about at the beginning, and it is data cleanliness. Like your Workday has to have accurate, clean data. And unfortunately, that is something that doesn't happen today. Like a lot of how we spend our time with a lot of customers is cleaning up their Workday data because it gets out of sync. Like Workday communicates to an external payroll system, and then the people that work with that external payroll system stop feeding Workday and go direct to the source. So your Workday, which is your source of that HR data, is out of sync, and then it's not accurate. And then if you start to use AI to model things with that data, then it's going to be incorrect. So that's one piece that I think we have to pay a lot of attention to. And then the other piece is those agents that you're giving access to your system are agents. Even though they're AI, you have to be very careful about the security level that you're giving those agents. Like, are you really going to give the keys to the kingdom to say, just look at all of my data? And in HR, and this is kind of like a deal that you do with all of your HR coworkers. We know so much. Like we have data, we have your very sensitive information, your social security number. We have how much you make. We have like your benefits providers, like who are your beneficiaries, who are your dependents. Like we have access to all of this data that we safe keep like so hard. And then all of a sudden, because AI is in, like we're going to give them access to
Right.
to all of this information, and we have to be very careful about that. So for me, in where we are is one, very optimistic, like incredibly optimistic about how we're going to have time and energy to spend in real like value adding activities. That is number one. Number two, we have to be careful security wise. And three, we have to be careful about the data that we're putting in so that the output that we create is accurate. So that's basically where I
I
stand.
completely agree. I think a lot of people think that you'll just kind of have this one AI agent and it'll do everything for you. But these agents are only as good as the data that you feed them and the
Mhm.
rules and the policies that you set for them to actually stay within. We have a big focus on data governance where when I used to sell cybersecurity software, there, there was mass data leaks where a lot of people were adopting AI and they found out their employees, for example, were just putting customer data into ChatGPT and they were just searching up easy ways to find things. And nowadays, ChatGPT is used as the new Google, right? Like
Mhm.
you're gonna look for the closest like restaurant near you. You're not even gonna go on Google anymore. You're gonna ask ChatGPT to suggest you something. So I think the thing that gets lost in that though is a lot of times people think, how closed are those prompts that you're putting in? Yeah, on the back end, the responses, it's learning, but what is it learning from? Of course, it has to learn from the prompts that you're feeding it. So those prompts that you're giving it are not enclosed. So a lot of people, when they're feeding these prompts into these bots, personal information, like you mentioned, people, you have PI data like social security numbers and all these things. It's very sensitive. And I think there is things that are being done around it, but data governance around AI is my biggest like excitement as well over the next 5 years, because I feel like that's going to change completely. I've already noticed in the last couple of years that it's changed entirely. Like people used to just like best practices will come out. I'm sure there'll be certain regulations around it, like what you can and can't do. But I completely agree with you. I'm curious with you guys over at Integrum, like what are you currently leveraging AI right now, or are you still kind of using the old school type of way of doing things?
No, like it'd be a lie if we don't leverage AI, right? Like a lot of the things that we do, still very open AI, but we try to automate as much as we can. I tell you, like note taking, for example, it's something like you were saying before. Like I don't want to spend a lot of time note taking and documenting. So we leverage AI and a lot of that. We're trying to come up with our own recipe, and we do have like like an arm of the organization led by our CEO dedicated to that because we know how important it is. And those so far are the main principles: is data integrity and security. Because again, we are the keepers of a lot of very sensitive information, and we have privileged access, and we understand that we do. It is, how do we educate our clients that they have to be the gatekeepers when those agents start to interact with their systems. So I think that that's where we are. We are exploring and making sure that we are in the right place. So that's where we are.
Very cool. I think a lot of people are at different phases of their AI adoption life cycle. Like even for myself, previously when I had left IBM, we had started a marketing consulting firm where a lot of us we were kind of doing the traditional digital marketing where, you're running paid media. You're from a marketing background, you kind of know about meta ads and SEO a little bit. So we were kind of just doing things traditionally, finding keywords on Google AdWords and pairing it up to optimize pages on people's websites. And that was kind of how we started. But our business entirely changed once AI came. We actually completely took that first, I used to call it our 1.0 version of our business. And now the 2.0 version, we've stripped it back. 90% of the services that we used to do before, we built the infrastructure around it. So now from like step A to point B, if somebody wants to have paid media done, how are those ad copies created? How are those creatives created? Now, if you actually see there's AI videos, most of the ads you'll see on Instagram or TikTok while you're scrolling are not actually real people. They're actually like AI generated videos. And once you kind of diverge into that, you end up realizing, okay, a lot of our overhead expenses that we had before just to manage a lot of our clients, they went down and the business became a lot more profitable. We didn't have to manage like 50 to 100 clients anymore. You can have a handful of clients and still have the same amount of bottom line revenue that we were focused on. And everything has changed, like for a lot of marketing teams, which is something I want to talk to you about as well. Sales and marketing, aside from the technical operations of a business, in my eyes, those are the three pillars of any successful company. When it comes to sales and marketing, how are you currently, if like over at your company, how are they managing bringing in new business to the company as well?
That's a great question. That is not my area of expertise. And luckily I help when we have a lead, right? Like I don't generate any of that, but when a customer is excited to talk about us, like that's where I jump in and I just tell them the story. And it's literally, this story is like, hey, we do things a little bit different than anyone else. We believe in the human component. We want you to know that we are there as humans. We want you to know the names of my pet and my daughter and build our relationship. And it's not your relationship with a ticketing system. It's like I enter tickets and then someone solves it. Like we're not interested in that. That's not how we do business. Like we do believe in that human component and understanding the requirements and understanding the business. And it's very different, right? Like my clients, and they don't understand how unique this is. So if they're listening, like just a little plug, they reach out to me on Teams, like 24/7, and I rarely charge them for those hours. I'm like a concierge service, like whenever they need me, I'm there, and so is my team. That's when I jump in, right? But that lead generation in our business, like the first thing, and that's where we were incredibly successful, was just referrals. Like my clients are successful. They talk to someone that is pissed off at their AMS. It's like, hey, he's good at it. Why don't you talk to him? And then that was number one, very easy. And then other than that, like we have a great sales team that what they do is do a lot of market intelligence, like understand where the needs are and then just pick up the phone and call. We have great partnerships with Workday themselves, because that is the best way to actually get to a Workday customer is through their Workday representative. So a lot of it is like that. And then these things that I was telling you, events like regional user groups, like where you get to showcase who you are, go to like little, like I don't know, like Workday Rising is gigantic, but things like that, like events, like they help a lot. That's basically how we do it.
That's really like for people that are out there and are kind of just dependent on one form of managing things. I think like Juan mentioned it firsthand, like even though he's not in the sales side of things, there's multiple channels that are actually involved in an overall process to running the business. Like even from a non-sales side, he mentioned like, you know, when he's actually helping their clients and they're actually creating those engagements, a lot of them are managing those conversations kind of one-on-one. They're reaching out to him on Teams and they're doing those types of engagements that way. Nowadays, even a lot of people, for example, there's essentially like automated voice engagements that you can have with certain clients.
Mhm.
So for example, if one client keeps asking the same 10, 15, 20 questions and they have like different variants of it, you feed it certain data based upon what their project is, what their accomplishments are, what their pain points are. And instead of them reaching out to you again and again, it will essentially respond to those queries to them consistently. And it will escalate any queries that require a human to actually be part of it. So there's so many cool things. Like one of our clients the other day, he started it wasn't even my client. It was actually I reached out because over here, if you see outside, it's ice everywhere. It's like really bad weather. But I needed to get my winter tires put on for my car. So I called my local tire shop and I said, you know, I need to get new tires put on. And entire time I'm thinking I'm talking to the guy's name's Ryan. I thought I was talking to him, but they cloned his voice onto the
Wow.
phone and basically was talking to me. And it wasn't until the end where he was like, "Is there anything else I can do for you?" I was like, there's no way he's not a real guy. Like cause I know how he speaks. Like I've spoken to him a million times. I'm like, yeah, he's talking a little bit more formally than I'm used to talking to him about, but booked my appointment, got me in, figured out which, like got it out of the storage, did everything. I didn't have to talk to a single human being. Everything was done. So when I got there, he looked at my confirmation number and I was in and out within 5-10 minutes. So it's just really cool. Like some of these things that you're seeing now within business. Yeah. Before rambling off, Juan, I want to wrap up with a couple rapid fire questions to you. This is one of my favorite parts of the segment. And two of them will be a little bit more business related, but then we'll have a handful that'll be more personal to you as a person. So,
Ready?
where you are right now at Integrum, where do you want to see yourself in 2026, 12 months from now? What would be a win for you guys?
Win for me is consolidating our practice the way we're doing it. You know, like I want to see my team being incredibly successful. We have a goal. So like if my partners and leaders are listening, right? Like it's hitting or exceeding those goals. But from my perspective, like that comes from a place where my team is ready to get that demand, right? Like we were talking a second ago, like sales is not my primary focus, is delivering. So I want to make sure that the people are delivering are excellent and you know, like everything out of the park. That's what would make me very, very happy in 12 months, right? Like having a very successful team.
So if you could wave a magic wand today, you're like December 2026 within the company or how you maybe even how the company is not even necessarily from a workflow standpoint, but how you're viewed in the public eye. What would that switch be? If you had a magic wand, you're like, this is the one thing I want to switch from now until the end of next year. What would that be?
So you mean change from today to then?
Yeah, like even in the public eye, like people being like, okay, you know what? If I need to get Workday implemented, like I'm gonna go to Integrum. Like those are the guys, like our go-to guys. Like it could be anything from that level. Like what would that be? That one thing that you would want to change?
I think we need to have more structured internal processes, you know, like, cause there's a lot of tribal knowledge and we're growing a lot. So when we were 5, tribal knowledge is fantastic. Everyone knows how it's done. But now that we're like 40, and my message starts to spread a little thin, you know, like it dilutes. We need stronger like documentation of our internal processes. Like when someone asks for something to be done in Workday, what do we do? So we, you know, estimate, tell the client, this is how many hours, like that, those hours include this thing. So then when we're charging them, they don't, you know, like
Mm,
dispute any charges or anything. So that then like how do we go about like discovering and solutioning and then document like all of those little things. Like I think if I had a magic wand and there would be like a perfect SOP knowledge library that organizes everything, that would be it.
very cool. Very cool. next would be what's next for Juan personally as a leader?
Man, that's a great question. For me as a leader, I think that I have to become more a leader of leaders. I'm spread very thin and I'm trying to do that. Uh, but understanding that I cannot be available for everyone everywhere, that has been shocking. But I need to understand that that is true, and how do I use my time like in the most valuable way, for those things to cascade down. So that to me, I think it's next as a leader. Like I need to hone in into that.
Favorite cuisine?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Favorite cuisine, man. I think like New Orleans, anything Creole, jambalaya, like those, like that is amazing. Yes,
Yeah, I'm big on that too. I'm more of like Louisiana. Like I love like
yes,
chicken and just like that type
yes,
of thing.
yes. Those rice and like sausage and beans and like yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
And your dream vacation place, if you could just pack up and go for a couple months, where would you be?
This is a nostalgia one, right? So, ever since I was a little kid, like I grew up in Bogotá and we had this little country house 2 hours away. And Colombia it's a great place for those of you that don't know it because you get whatever weather you want any time of year. You just have to go up or down the mountain. That's all it takes, right? So Bogotá is a little for you it would be summer, but for us it's a little chilly because it's in the 50s to 70s, right? So it's sweater weather for me for sure. But you go 2 hours down the mountain and you're in like 85, 90-degree weather, pools and whatever. So we had this little spot that my dad still has and he lives there. And for me, I transport to being like a teenager. I go there and
Yeah.
all of my problems like just melt away and I feel like I'm 15. So that to me is the perfect place.
Man, if I had the ability to just pack up and go back to my home, like unfortunately I've lived my whole life in the same place. So like I kind of
Yeah.
really have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
My last question, Juan, like
Mhm.
this has been amazing, but for the younger audience, young entrepreneurs out there, even just when if you could go back now, your 20-year-old self, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give yourself if you had to do it all over again?
Oh my goodness, so many. But I will start with be patient. Like I was always in a rush to be successful. Like we are. I don't know, and if it was the same when my parents grew up or whatever, but it's like you finish school and now you're going to be like a VP of like a multinational organization. It's like don't do like even if it's offered to you, don't do it. Like learn step by step and enjoy every step of your career, right? Like be in a rush. And take as much as you can out of every opportunity. And I'm not saying money, like it's kind of like secondary. I know that we love it, and I'm not saying, hey, don't make lots of money, right? Like we all need it, but don't make that your primary motivation, right? Like learn for the pleasure of learning, of doing something that you're passionate about, even if you don't like it at first. Give it a shot because you may fall in love with that, and then I think if you're going to be a business owner, and this one hit me very hard. Being a business owner is more like tending to a garden than architecting something because you don't have a lot of control of how it's going to grow, when it's going to grow. Like I had an idea that I wanted to be like a 4-shop operation. That never happened because your clients want more and then you have to hire more and then it grows in spurts when you least expect it. Uh, so tend to your garden, like water it and, give it soil. But if it doesn't grow exactly the way that you wanted it to grow, like it's cool.
I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of it people don't understand. Like when you're an entrepreneur, the biggest struggle I personally had to was you'll go on Instagram and you'll see all these guys that are like your age or younger than you that are flexing all these like they're driving these Lamborghinis, these Porsches, and it actually paints subconsciously in your mind that you're failing in life because you're the same age and you have nothing even close to that. But the reality is, like, as you actually go on this journey, you realize there are very, very low days where you think that you're questioning why you're doing what you're doing. I could easily just get a job and have stability and, just live my life and I'll probably be like decently happy. But as a business owner, there will be a lot of ups and downs and the entire focus is, even when you have a bunch of clients reaching out to you, asking you for your business and are referring you to everybody, never get too high and never get too low. That's the best piece of advice that I ever got. And that is definitely what kept me stable, even through all those early days where you spent 6, 12, 18 months picking up the phones every day and all you're getting is a bunch of people telling you to F off on the phone. You just
Yeah.
have to work your way through that. So, I think this has been great, Juan. Like, I personally love having conversations that are not just business oriented, but also just learning about you as a human being. Everybody has that personal side to them. So I love getting into that a little bit. I think this is very useful for us. Before we end up, can you just share with everybody, where can they find you online? Do you have a website, a social media, anything like that?
Yeah. So absolutely. Like you can find me on LinkedIn if you want to like talk to me. Like I think that is very easy. I think you can find me as Juan Sebastian Araujo because my middle name is there. If you want to find us, integrumresources.com. That is our website. I think that you can also find us on LinkedIn and we're pretty active. So feel free to reach out and nothing like anything that you need, like literally or want to know, like just reach out as you just said. Like don't be shy. Because we're all in this together, right? Like this living experience and anything that we can do to help out, like we're more than happy.
It's awesome. Juan, this has been great, man. I really appreciate you taking the time today and looking forward to hopefully having you on again in the future.
Now, you've been great. Thank you so much for hosting. Again, it applies to you. Anything that I can do for you, just let me know. And hope the best and happy holidays and all of that.
You have a good trip to Florida this week and enjoy the time off. Very well needed
Thank you
time
so
off
much.
with your family.
Yeah,
All right.
for sure.
Take care.
You take it easy. Bye.